Development plans at the Keppel Club site announced today include the first BTO project launching within 3 years. More Kinder brand chocolate products are under recall just days before Easter. And in today's Invest segment, tips for legacy planning to help families avoid legal battles. You're watching The Big Story with me, Olivia Quay. Remember to subscribe to the Straits Times channel so you never miss an episode. The first BTO project in the Greater Southern Waterfront is expected to be launched within the next 3 years, which will essentially kickstart the transformation of the area into a mega waterfront development along Singapore's southern coast. 6,000 HDB flats and 3,000 private housing will be built on the 48-hectare site of the Keppel Club, indicated by the red boundary here. Redevelopment works will begin when the club's lease runs out in June, save for a small portion which has its lease extended until next March. Let's find out more about this project from housing correspondent Michelle Ng. Michelle, 48 hectares, 9,000 public and private homes. The development is huge. What else can you tell us about the significance of the site?
Yes, so this is a very sizable development. We can definitely expect to see a number of BTO projects launched over the years, similar to what we saw in Bidadari. In Bidadari, there were BTO projects progressively being launched from 2015 to 2021. So today, Minister Desmond Lee announced that the first BTO project is expected to launch within 3 years. This will kickstart the entire transformation for the Greater Southern Waterfront area, which was first announced in 2013. So for context, the Greater Southern Waterfront comprises 30 km of coastline stretching from Gardens by the Bay, East area to Pasir Panjang. So this 48-hectare site is just the beginning of the entire transformation. And to have 6,000 HDB flats there means that everyday Singaporeans, I guess just like you and I, will have the chance to experience waterfront living in a very coveted and central location.
Right, so Michelle, since it will be part of plans for the Greater Southern Waterfront, do you think the HDBs there will fall under the new prime location public housing model? And if so, what are the implications? For example, will they remain affordable?
Whether the HDB flats there will be under the PLH model, I think that's a very tricky question to answer. Well, for one, it's a very attractive location that many people, including property analysts, would consider prime. And these are the flats that, the flats in those areas would have very high market values in the future, and they would require significant additional subsidies from the government to keep these flats affordable. But right now at this juncture, the HDB is not yet confirming if the BTO projects there will be under the PLH model. Usually we will only know at the point of launch for these projects. But certainly I would say that these flats have very attractive attributes that could qualify them under this model. Regardless, I think these BTO flats will definitely be subsidized in terms of pricing because they are public housing after all. But I think realistically they would likely meet a higher price range comparable to other BTO flats in mature estate. So Minister Desmond Lee had previously said that rental housing will be included in the Greater Southern Waterfront where possible. This is to ensure people from all walks of life will be able to live in such central locations. So actually, I wouldn't be surprised if HDB launches rental units from the get-go from the first BTO projects that's going to be launched within 3 years' time.
Oh, very interesting. Well, Michelle, let's talk about the green, how green this development will be. Not only is the Keppel Club making way for this site, it's also located close to Labrador Park and the Southern Ridges, which includes Mount Faber, Telok Blangah Hill, Kent Ridge, as well as Balea Creek. So what new green spaces can we expect to see, and how does it complement the existing park network?
Yes, so we can expect to see a lot of new green spaces there. For example, there will be a new Labrador Nature Park network, which will comprise more than 200 hectare of green spaces. There will also be a 500-meter walking and hiking trail in Alexandra Nature Park, which honestly sounds very interesting to me. Within the 48-hectare site where the housing developments will be, there will be 4 new green corridors for future residents to enjoy. So these 4 green corridors will cut across the entire housing estate, and these will be like recreational spaces for residents to hang out in the evening and just throughout the day. And there will also be walking trails throughout the estate that are connected to the 2 MRT stations nearby. These are Labrador Park and Teluk Blangah MRT station on the Circle Line. So in future, people can just take leisure walks there if they want to get to the MRT station. I think in general, we just expect to see a lot of greenery, a lot of parks and open land in the area, because greenery is a very big part of the whole land planning of the estate.
Thanks so much, Michelle. Housing correspondent Michelle Ng. You can read more about this upcoming redevelopment at straitstimes.com. In other local news, the transaction volume of resale condos bounced back in March after falling for 6 months. Activity picking up after the Chinese New Year festive period and the easing of COVID-19 rules. Based on flash figures, prices climbed 0.8% from February, rising for the 20th straight month. Law and Home Affairs Minister K. Shanmugam announcing that a new police command will be set up by next year to handle sexual crime and family violence cases. Police officers will also undergo enhanced training so they can better respond to sexual crime cases. The ongoing recall of Kinder brand chocolate products in Singapore has been extended to 4 more products because they might be contaminated with salmonella. Kinder Chocobons, Kinder Surprise Maxi, Kinder Mini Eggs and Kinder Egg Hunt Kit, all made in Belgium, are the latest to be affected. Salmonella symptoms usually include fever, diarrhea and abdominal cramps. And a day after one of Malaysia's most wanted men, Nicky Liao, surrendered to police, he pleaded not guilty to 26 charges of money laundering tied to so-called Macau scams. The 34-year-old is known for openly flaunting his wealth on social media, often posing with stacks of cash he allegedly earned through dubious dealings. Liao is believed to be the boss of an organized crime syndicate that had scammed hundreds of victims around Malaysia. A recent court ruling in Singapore has lessons for all property owners. Let's look at what happened. The case involved an HDB flat that was in the joint names of a man and his daughter. When the man died, the daughter automatically became the sole owner. But the man's other children launched a challenge because his will stated that his only son would inherit the flat. The daughter won her case in the High Court, but the Court of Appeal then overturned this decision, citing evidence that the man had no intention to give her the flat. Let's untangle this case with Invest editor Tan Wee Boon. So Wee Boon, what is the first lesson here, especially when putting someone's name as a joint owner for property inheritance planning?
You know something, Ollie? Properties are probably the most expensive assets for most families. So it pays to understand the legal positions on home ownership. When you put someone's name as a joint owner, it means that he or she will own the property jointly with you. And if something happens to you, the joint owner will take over the whole property. This rule of survivorship will apply even if you may have a will and that you want the property to go to someone else. Of course, as pointed out by you earlier, the Court of Appeal has ruled in a case that the joint owner will not get the property after her father passed away, because the rest of the family can prove that the father, who paid for everything, clearly wanted the property to go to another person. But they succeeded in doing so only after 2 rounds of court battles and spending about 40,000 in legal fees. So the lesson here is, if you don't want to pass the whole property to a particular person, then don't make the person the joint owner.
I see. Well, Wee Boon, what else should families do to avoid, legal nightmares that involve property ownership?
Again, one of the ironies of life is that many people work hard to build their wealth, but when it comes to managing the wealth, they don't spend enough effort on it. When that happens, your relatives can end up in court fighting over your assets. So here are some tips to remember. For couples, joint ownership is actually a good arrangement. One spouse takes over when the other party is no longer around. The same goes for families with only one kid. Your only child inherits all your properties if he or she is a joint owner. But if you want to give the properties to more than one person, it's better to create something that's known as tenancy in common. In this case, you state clearly how much share a person owns in that property. But do note that before you go and list everyone's name in the next property purchase so that everyone gets a share, you have to consider Singapore's property regime as well. If you put your son's name in a property, he will not be able to apply for a HDB flat. He will also have to pay additional stamp duties when he buys his own home. So if you have multiple beneficiaries to consider, it is best to consult a lawyer. And in drawing up your will, don't forget to tell your lawyer about your properties and whose names are on them.
Always useful, helpful advice from Invest editor Tan Wee-Boon. Wee-Boon has written about legacy planning and pitfalls of joint property ownership, including the story of another family feud that ended up in court. You'll find his articles online at str.sg/invest. You can visit straitstimes.com for more news and our YouTube channel. For more videos, subscribe by hitting the red button below. I'm Olivia Quay. Join me tomorrow for more stories on The Big Story.